You and me together, get through whatever. For worse or better, when the lights go down. You and me together, there's nothing better. It's now or never. Make it through somehow. Make it through somehow.
Hey, bestie.
What's up, sis? You're tuned into Big Sis Besties Podcast. Back again with another episode of BSB and its hostesses with the mostesses. On today's episode, we'll be discussing maintaining healthy friendships and relationships, managing fights and disagreements, how relationships change as we age, making new friends as adults, and our perspectives on these topics.
All right, now, y'all know we have been friends for a very long time. And I will say it's definitely been a ride.
Of a lifetime.
So, yeah, I feel like for us, it has been a wild ride. I think we honestly haven't had a lot of big fights or disagreements in our friendship, but there's definitely been moments where we've had tough times. And it's really called on some patience and some grace that we've had to extend each other. I think part of us working for so long is that from the beginning, we've always been very vulnerable, very honest about our life, our experiences, who we are, what we've been through. And by understanding that stuff, we have been able to, extend some of that empathy and grace to the other person. Like, if you're having a hard time, you're taking it out on me, we can talk about it. You can say, like, I feel like you're not there, and like I don't feel attacked or defensive. I just take that as like a opportunity to be like, okay, well, how do you need me to be there for you in this moment? And that's always worked for us.
I would have to agree on that. We have not had many big disagreements at all. The only one I can think of is, when I was going through my rough time. But we sat down, we talked about it, and we really haven't had any issues since.
No, yeah.
Communication is key. You have to be able to sit down with your partner or your loved one or your friend, your bestie, your sister, whatever relationship you may have with whoever you may have it with. Communication and being able to talk about what is going on, your feelings, is to me one of the key points in maintaining a friendship throughout all phases of your life.
Right. And I think you should be able to take constructive criticism and feedback without feeling attacked or feeling hurt, because if you do have a strong enough relationship with someone, you should have enough security in yourself, in your friendship or your relationship or whatever it may be, to voice how you feel without feeling like a burden, without feeling judged, without feeling like you have to get defensive or anything like that, because there should be understanding there. I think, being supportive of someone fully is taking the sum of them, all of them together. Like, every time you've pulled up for me, every time you've been the person I can call, the shoulder to cry, and you've listened to me without judgment, I would never risk any of that, or I would never choose to lose any of that over a petty disagreement. Because let's be so real, we would never do anything intentionally to hurt the other person because we care about each other. And I think any that's true with any relationship or friendship. If it's authentic, if it's real, it's never done with malicious intent or anything like that. It's done because you care, even if it is, sometimes the truth's hard to hear and sometimes doing the right thing is tough. I think if you have enough perspective and self-awareness about yourself, you should be able to take any criticism that somebody who cares about you has to say.
Well, I will say, in many different aspects of my relationships with people, there are only a certain few that I feel comfortable enough to be able to call someone out or let them know how I feel, because they will be able to communicate back with me and say, oh, this is how I've been feeling too. Like you said, this is what I need from you. This is what you need from me. And we can go from there. On the other hand, I have relationships where I want to speak how I feel and I want to tell you what's on my mind, but you're not at a mental capacity to where you can take the information and process it.
Right.
You just want to get defensive. You just want to point the blame at me. And what I'm trying to do is tell you what I'm needing from you instead of you telling me what I'm not doing at that time. There's a time and a place for all of that. You had your opportunity to speak it. And a lot of the times I avoid those conversations because I know that person is not at the mental capacity to be able to have the conversation.
It just won't be productive.
Correct.
It'll just be a fight, yeah.
Correct.
Which is unhealthy. I mean, that is like, it's a toxic behavior, but I think it's an easy behavior to get. Like, you know, that comes from where you grow up, the household you grow up within, relationships that you've had, because we've both had some pretty toxic relationships, like, you know, romantic relationships that had traits like that with fighting, or even just friendships that we've had with people who, you know, I don't want to say it's like a low vibration, but it is, you know, it's just like I should be able to come to you without you pointing the finger back, or, you know, you should be able to take accountability without feeling attacked. You know, you should know I still love you, even though I don't necessarily love this particular thing that you did. And I should be able to say that without it being a fight. Because, again, a fight is not productive. You know, because then, like, you're hurt feelings. You're going to hurt feelings. You say things that are hard to come back from. And, I mean, I know just from personal experience, you know, we've both had, like, really long-term friendships that have ended because of stupid stuff. It's never because of anything big. And
because of lack of communication.
Right, honestly.
And on my behalf too, I have unfortunately lost friends because of my lack of communication. But in my opinion, at the time of my lack of communication, that was me crying out for help.
Right.
And instead of you approaching me and saying, what can I do for you? What do you need? You just cut me off.
Right.
I have had several instances with that. I've had instances where you no longer need me, or I've done something
when it's
that
convenient for you.
Correct. I've done something to you that maybe hurt your feelings a little bit, but you blew up on me and disregarded all of the things that I have been there for you for, which I don't do it for you to thank me. I do it because I love you and you're my friend.
Yeah.
And I still have relationships that I am sifting through and realizing that
are one-sided.
You are not really there for me. You don't pull up for me in the ways that I pull up for you and have for XYZ decades, years, months, days, whatever it may be, you know.
And you're big on that. You are always the person that pulls up
first.
You know, you're in the on time,
early.
You're there all day.
I'm
You'll
bringing
stay
food.
late. You're in the first row, cheering extra loud. That's always how you've been as a person. And I know we were joking earlier about how, like, you have the title of godmother from multiple people. Is because you are that person. You show up in people's lives and you give that nurturing and loving and support, but sometimes it's not always reciprocated, or at least it's not the same way. And I think also as you get older, you realize you expect people to love you in the way that you love them, but that's not always the case. You have to meet people with where they're at, and that speaks to what I was saying about seeing people as the sum of their whole. Because, like, for example, like, whenever we had tough times or whatever, it's like, I know that you've had friendships that have fallen through because of petty things, or you have been abandoned by people who were the closest to you. You know, betrayal doesn't come from your enemies, it comes from your friends and people who you wouldn't expect it from. So it's like, I know why you got defensive about certain things. I know that you like to isolate when you're going through a hard time. So it's like, you know, me as your friend, it's up to me to know how you react to those things, how I can give you grace in those situations. Like, if you're going through a hard time and you're isolating, I need to know, like, hey, I need to know how to ask you, do you need time by yourself to process this? Or do you need me to just come over and sit? And we don't have to say anything. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to be anything that you're not in that moment. You just have to have somebody there. And sometimes that's what it is just showing up and having somebody there for you. And
I have not ever been the best at saying I need help. And it is those few people that realize, wait, she's isolating. That doesn't necessarily mean a good thing.
No.
And my mother is one of them who realizes it and will pop up. But so many times I have pulled up for people in my lowest time. And now that I am doing a project and I'm putting my love into something, and since the release of this podcast, I am starting to see that those people that I pull up for and I support and I'm in the front row and I show up early and I leave late, it's one-sided.
Right. Yeah.
Not a congratulations, not a good job, not a bad job. So I'm starting to realize that I need to once again filter through, because I only have one you.
Yeah.
One you that can pay attention to my friend is in a state where she either needs me or she doesn't.
Right.
She's going to tell me she doesn't, but that's a disguise.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So for you to have been able to take that time, you showed me the vulnerability. I've showed you the vulnerability since the beginning. And that is why it is now easy for me to be vulnerable with you, because we've done that from literally
From the beginning.
week one.
Yeah, we've always done that with each other. I think that's a big thing too, is I feel like that's always been our standard. And I think we were just really open from the jump. Like, I really wish I had someone in my life that could be this. And we were like, okay, bet. I'll be that. You know? And
For
we were
one
like,
another.
We were
yeah.
like, okay, you know, we need that in each other and we'll be that for each other. But I think, unfortunately, we hold on. And this is such a big thing that happens as you get older, is you've spent so many years or decades knowing a person. You've been friends since high school. You know, I've known them since middle school. Or, oh my gosh, you know, we worked together for like 8 years ago and we're still friends. Those people you keep around because of time, that you feel loyal to, that doesn't always serve you as you get older. And I mean, that goes for blood as well. You know, there's people in my family and your family that we know it's hard to be around them all the time, because it takes away from us and our peace, and it is not the healthiest relationship, but we feel like a sense of loyalty because of time, because that's my blood, whatever. But I mean, you get older and you're just like, it's not worth sacrificing myself for what? You know what I mean? To say that you like
I've known them that long.
Right.
And I struggle with that. I have a history problem.
Yeah.
I have history with someone. I give them the benefit of the doubt so many times. And I just want to save that relationship because they knew me from before, or they knew me before I was who I was or who I am. And I'm starting to realize that doesn't mean anything.
No.
Because those people that you knew back then may not be the same as they were then. They may not have the same intentions.
Because we grow.
Correct.
We evolve. And you should grow and you should evolve. But unfortunately, I think, you know, and I know this was a big problem for me in my last relationship. It's been a big problem for you through friendships, but more specifically, is like sometimes people don't grow with you. You know, you outgrow them. And it's not, you know, and it's not a shade thing. It's just like we all go through different things. We process things differently. That constructive criticism, if you can't take it, you won't grow. It's like, it's really hard to keep someone around that you've always known and loved, because you reminisce on the good times. Because obviously it wasn't all bad times. Otherwise you wouldn't be friends in the first place. Or you wouldn't still be together or whatever. It's, you kind of try to keep them through the benefit of the doubt. But right there where they are in their present is not matching up. You know, it's not in the same path as you, and in the path that you're heading, you're going this way. You know, you're growing, you got beautiful things in your future for you ahead, and they are in the same place that they have been. And that leads to people who are resentful, that leads to people who have toxic problems in relationships, and it's just heavy to try and hold on to that for the sake of like loyalty. And it sometimes is like a moral confliction, you know. Have love for someone, but that doesn't mean that you love where they're at or what they're bringing to you in that moment.
Yeah, and I'm starting to realize that I was the toxic friend at one point with the toxic relationship who kept coming back over and over again with the same BS, not leaving. I was the friend who was in a place that people may not have want to have been around, but those were the stages that I had to go through to get to where I am now. And I want to say I wasn't always the best friend, but I tried every day to be the best that I can be, to show up, to let you know that I'm there, even with the toxic things that I may have brought or done or said. I was learning, and I didn't mean it in a malice way. Maybe it came off like that. So I do want to say, first and foremost, I have not always been the picture perfect friend.
Right.
However, when I got older and realized you got to think before you speak, you got to, think before you tell people things, you have to deal with things on your own before you rely on someone else to be able to give you the advice to change it. Because if you're not ready, it's not going to happen. But what I will say is, nobody can ever say I didn't pull up. Family, friends, not blood related, whatever have you, I always pull up. If I say I'm going to be there, I'm there. And that is why I have such a big problem with people saying, oh, you're my best friend. Oh, I'm there for you. Oh, I got your back. But crickets. Right. When you really need someone. When you're in your lowest time and you're in that corner and you want to cry for help, but you can't. So I have had a few discrepancies and problems with people I feel like not pulling up for me, and those who communicated it, we were able to work through it. And those who can't communicate, it's still like, you're not really there for me when I was there for you, and nothing is going unnoticed.
Yeah. I think that's something that you definitely notice as you get older too, because first of all, it takes a lot of maturity in a person to be accountable and like be self-aware and be like, listen, I'm not perfect. I've had my faults. I have been toxic at times. I have not, the picture perfect example of a healthy relationship at all moments. But when you're young, I think it is all about like who's around and who's loud about, how they're there and whatever. But as you get older, it's like all that stuff don't really mean nothing. But when shit hits the fan, when it gets real, and you look around and the people that are beside you are there and have been there, and they're always there. When you look back on events and you can remember who showed up and whatever, that's the stuff that really matters. Because I think, again, like, we grow as people. None of us are perfect, but being able to learn your faults and then adjust them, or being able to learn another person and being like, flaws and all, this person delivers more joy to my life than grief, or makes me more at peace than stress. I think at the end of the day, the drama's for the birds.
We're grown.
We're grown. Okay, we don't have time for that.
Right. And I will say that you are the epitome of the saying, you can know someone for 2 days and they show you more than someone who you've known for 2 years. You showed me since the beginning that you were going to invest your time in me, and you have done that. Even by you saying in the beginning of our episode that it takes for you to realize, does she need me to be there or does she not? Not many people are conscious enough or even selfless enough to care about things like that. Yeah. And that really goes to show how compatible we are, because I am typically also that person.
Right, yeah. You have to look past like little things, because life is not all the little things. It's the bigger, like, harder moments that really make our character, that make our relationships, that make our memories. We're not going to remember all the little things in the day-to-day, the little petty arguments, the conversations that are gone in one moment. It's all about the lasting impression that someone leaves on your soul. And it's all about the moments in your life that are going to be your memories when you're old and you only got 2 friends because all the rest of them are gone.
I will also say it is not fair for you to hold someone accountable for when they were younger for their actions. unless they consistently are showing you that they're in that same place.
Right.
They still can't communicate. They still can't have a grown-up discussion. They still can't move a certain way, which we think is right. Now, I am learning that not everyone's like me. Not everyone lives off principle. Not everyone moves the way that I move. However, I do hold people to a standard of what I hold myself to.
Absolutely.
If you expect it of me, why would I not expect it of you? I want us to be equal in what we deliver to one another, and I'm starting to feel overexerted because it doesn't get returned.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just, how relationships change as we get older. It's like you kind of pick and choose what's worth it. It's like somebody could be a riot and a laugh and so charismatic and fun to be around, but if they're also always drama, always got some crazy story, some excuse, they're financially always strapped and borrowing money or this and that, and it's like
It's a
like,
cycle.
you're
It's
like,
a
oh,
pattern.
but that's my friend,
Right.
It's like, okay.
Something's got to give.
And then it's
And
just
I've
like,
been in those situations way too many times with someone that you consider to be close to you, and they put you in a situation that's like, how could you put me in this situation?
Right.
You call yourself my friend, but you're putting me in a situation that really could have been avoided had we spoken about it, or
planning,
you moved
better
it.
communication.
Correct,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm not gonna hold you. Like, people, you don't know what people have been through to make them operate in a certain way and whatever. But it's like, once you do decide you are friends with people, once you do learn those things about them, it's like, okay, now I know, but that's not an excuse. It's like, I know why you act a certain way, but also you are capable of learning, you're capable of growing, you're capable of, like, I know that you're intelligent enough to make wiser decisions. I know that you're smarter than this, you're better than this, or whatever.
I used to be one of the first people to get defensive back in my younger days, but that's because I always had to have the last word. I was listening to speak, not listening to listen. I just would hear what you're saying and then cut you off with some defense on BS on why I can't take accountability.
Right, yeah.
But the older I'm getting, the first thing I'm going to do is tell you what I didn't do right. I'm not going to point any fingers at you without telling you what I failed at. And the problem that I'm having in today's society, friendships, relationships, is it's always point the finger first, and then I'll defend myself later. And I'm so over that dynamic of our generation.
Yeah.
I need people to take accountability of what they failed to do or what they want to do better, so we can progress instead
move
of
forward.
going in a circle and fighting about nothing.
I'm bad about that too. I mean, I get so defensive as well, and I think a lot of that is rooted in my childhood too. Where it's like, I felt like I had to explain myself. I never wanted to be misconstrued or misunderstood as like I had bad intentions, or that's not what I meant by this, or whatever. But it really doesn't matter, actually. Like, and that's something that you learn as you get older. It doesn't matter what their intentions are, or you can have the best intentions. It matters how that person took it. You know what I mean? And if they
The
tell
understanding,
you, if
right?
they tell you that hurt me, you don't get the right to tell them it didn't, right? You can't tell someone like, but that's not what I meant. It doesn't matter.
Or you're wrong for feeling like that.
Right, because that's not an apology.
Right.
Also, that's a big thing too. It's like, if you're
Gaslighting.
it
It happens in all relationships.
and friendships too.
Right.
It's like, you can't
But
tell
a
me that I'm
friendship
not
is a
there for you.
relationship.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, and that makes me think back to that time where it was like, you can't tell me that I'm not being there if you're not telling me to be there how you need it. You know what I mean? Or I'm here for you in this way, but it's not the way that you need. It's just like, it's just those assumptions. Assumptions are and expectations are killers of like a healthy relationship dynamic, because you can't assume how people feel. You have to ask, because honestly, when do we ever actually all know how we always feel all the time?
Right,
Nobody does.
right.
We have to work things out. We have to verbalize it. Sometimes working it out with someone is even better than trying to work it out in your own head, because it's a mess in there sometimes.
And you should always give grace on where people came from. My thing is, we're all adults now.
Yeah.
We all came from different places. I'm not allowing you to use that as an excuse as to why you can't communicate
You're
or
more
as
than
to
what
why.
you've been
Right.
through.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, I take in account that you didn't have this growing up, but now we're at an age where we need to figure it out and we need to progress because we're going to be stuck in this. Oh, I can't do this because.
Right.
Oh, I'm like this because.
Yeah.
That's a defense mechanism, and it's not going to get us anywhere other than
Honestly,
stuck
it's
in a rut.
selfish too, in my opinion. I think people who kind of project that, like I've had friends that have done that too, who have told me like, "Oh, I feel like you're in a better place, and I'm here," and like that makes me resentful, or that gives me an excuse to treat you this way that I've been treating you. That's not okay. It's because you're feeling stuck where you are, or because you're feeling whatever. That's not an excuse to take advantage of the people that care about you. It's not an excuse to treat them poorly.
That's not something a friend does.
Right. It's selfish. It's like, oh, I have these feelings, and I'm feeling held back, or I'm feeling stuck, or whatever. That's a you problem. And like, as your friend, I want to support you in problems that you're going through, but that doesn't mean I have to get the backlash of your emotions. I don't want to get the like feeling that, oh, if I try and help you, it's going to hurt me. That's
We're here to help each other. We're supposed to be here to help each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like you have to weigh the balance of things, like the pros and cons of things. Our time on earth is finite. The hours in the day are never enough. We all got stresses and problems that we carry in our own lives every day, and we choose people, our chosen family through friends. We have our family that we choose to keep around and keep in contact with. We choose to allow them to give us some of that burden to carry because we love them, and it's you carry a load as a team, but it's also like you can't fill a cup if you're empty. You need people to pour back into you, and you have to weigh that out when you're older. It's like, is it worth pouring into this person even though I've known them for 20 years? Do they show up? Do they call me? Do they text me? Do they respond? Do they when I talk to them, is it like no time has passed? Can we just have an honest conversation, be our authentic selves with them? Because if you can't, it's not worth it. It's not.
The deeper into my 30s I get, the less I have to fill anyone else's cup. I've been left dry time and time again. I don't have any more cups to fill. Or any more liquid to put in those cups to fill anyways.
Too many cups that you've poured into that you feel like you're not getting back. I feel that, man. I get that. I think a big part of that being like, a habitual people pleaser and always trying to take care of everybody, nurture everybody. I mean, I think it's an admirable thing, but it does not, it does not make you valuable by being there for somebody and sacrificing for yourself.
But I still have that guilt when I do sacrifice, which it rarely ever happens that I miss something that I'm invited to or, whatever have you. But the guilt definitely sets in because what are they going to think of me?
Right.
What if they don't think I'm there for them? What this and that.
Or you're like scared of the repercussions and the fights or whatever because you've dealt with that in the past.
Yes.
I get that. And I mean, I also always feel guilty, like if I'm invited to something, like when I was like sick last week, like I felt so bad for missing it. I literally had the flu. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not calling out sick and lying about it. It's a fact. But I think it's just like, it's important to us because we care, but not everybody cares the way we care. And I think, as you get older, it's so important to surround yourself with people who care the way you care and who give you love the way you need to receive it and vice versa, understanding each other's love languages and stuff. That's relevant even in friendships. I read this book recently called The Other Significant Other by Raina Cohen, and it was basically talking about how the idea of a partner or a husband or wife giving us absolutely everything we need in every aspect of our relationships is like kind of an older ideal, and the new idea is that a fulfilling life and loving relationship can be with a friend or partner or like, a platonic soulmate. And it's so important to find people who speak to your soul and to build a community of loved ones that do pour into you. Because when you get older and life gets harder and all that frivolous little extra stuff dwindles down, going to everybody's event, and everybody's always going to have a birthday or a wedding or a dinner or something to go to, but it's like, you have to pick and choose who is most important and what is most important and what fits into your life, what they give to your life, and if it's reciprocal or not.
And if it's not reciprocated, then that is a red flag. And I am no longer pouring into others' cups.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I don't have it in me. The older I get, the more conscious I am of how selfish people are and me, and how it affects and what can it enhance me. And it's just, it's overwhelming at the selfishness and the entitlement that friends and family think that they have on a person.
Right, yeah.
And I have nothing for you.
Yeah.
I'm at that point.
And that applies to everybody, too. That's not just your friends. Like, there's family members that sometimes, I was just talking to my little brother the other day about this. I was like, certain people will call you and it drains you, or if it makes you feel bad about yourself, or you find it like hard to have a relationship with them, you don't have to feel obligated to just because they are family.
Right.
And I understand how he feels. I'm like, I get it. I think you can have some kind of relationship with them because you're family, out of respect and like out of understanding. But again, like, just because there's time, just because in the past they were this way, but whatever, but now at your present state, and I was like telling him, especially, I was like, now that you're a young man, do you feel like the life that you want to create involves those examples of those people and what they give to your life? Because it's your peace and it's your happiness, it's your success that you sacrifice by trying to carve out more time or do more things for them or give them more of your energy. And it's unfortunate and it's really hard because as we get older, we just realize, like, our family's just human beings. They're just people. We're all just figuring it out. But you gotta find people who are on the same wavelength as you, on the same path, understanding, that pour into you the way you want to pour into them.
And I find it is harder to make new adult friends because I have had so many bad experiences in the past with friendships, with people with history, with new friends that I allowed to come into my life. So I find it hard to make new friends unless it's a friend of a friend.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to put yourself out there. I would honestly argue it's almost kind of like dating like new people. Like, let's say you go to work and you meet this person, you like their vibe or whatever. You're like, oh, like, let's hang out. You start to get like a little closer, and then you're like, oh, this person's like crazy.
They're not what I thought.
Or like
they
they're
were.
not what I thought they were, and then you have to pull it back, and now now it's weird. Yeah, I mean, I get that. It is kind of hard. I think it shouldn't stop you though, because I mean, our friend circles get smaller as we get older for a reason. But, when good people come in your life, I think you can always just kind of tell. And it doesn't always have to be like when we were young and just like full force, like be like, oh, okay, this is my best friend. And like, I'm pouring everything into this person. But it's like, you can slowly start to reciprocate the same actions that they do. And then you just build that bond. And then time passes and you give people opportunities to show up for you. They do. You can't close down those opportunities and expect new like relationships to grow out of that, because sometimes beautiful things can form out of those chances, but also sometimes you can get burned. I think it's like a fair balance of both, like being wise but not letting like being jaded stop you from possibilities.
Well, if I wouldn't have been open to new, I wouldn't have been open to you.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I try to remember that, but I'm just so different than I was then. I don't feel as welcoming. I am. It's like I am welcoming, but I'm just not as welcoming as I once was, because I'm just I'm tainted. It's just it's like you had that pure heart before, and now it's not damaged in a sense, but it's just not whole anymore. It's got all these little nicks and bruises and cuts. So now it's got all this scar tissue. Yeah, it's
who you
tough.
give it to.
Yeah.
I totally understand. I identify with that. I think it's also harder to moving forward, like out of like longer relationships or longer friendships that have failed because of that reason. You just feel like hurt and that sticks with you.
And you did mention in our first episode that friendship separations almost hurt worse, and they do, because you really think this person is going to be with you through everything, throughout the rest of your life, relationships, deaths, births,
Right.
all of these things, and when it just ends abruptly, it's like a stab in the heart.
Yeah, we've both experienced that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been people who, I felt like were like siblings to me, that I don't even speak to anymore. And it's just, like how we were talking about, like that lack of growth,
Yeah, I can resonate with that. I feel like people I've considered my sibling, we're distant now. No love lost.
Right.
But, life takes you the way it takes you. And if you are not in that state where you want to communicate that, life happens.
Right. Yeah.
So I definitely understand. That's one thing that we are on the same page about, is it happens, unfortunately.
It does, yeah. It happens with friends. It happens with just strangers, coworkers. It also happens with family. And like maintaining healthy relationships with your family is tough too. But I mean, again, as you get older, your relationship just changes. Like, our relationships with our parents now are different as we're also adults. Our relationships with our siblings change now as well. Like, It's just, you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to evolve. And I think that's, a testament to our last episode, 20s to 30s, and so on.
We are continuously evolving, but some people just get stuck in their own downfall.
Yeah.
Yep. And they get sucked into that black hole, into that cyclone, and they expect everybody else to go down with them. And no,
you need friends that lift you up, and you need friends that you can be yourself. You need friends that motivate you, that push you, that want better for you than you want for yourself. And I can't tell you how many times where I've genuinely felt like in your eyes that you almost viewed me even higher than I viewed myself, or that you've wanted more from me than I ever thought I could deserve, and that just made me want to be better, and that made me want to grow and to change. And I think that's that's love in its own way. So.
But at some points I do feel like I was a bit pushy, but it was because I knew what you wanted.
You pushy?
Right.
Never.
But I remember, especially with the last job,
the last job, the last relationship.
Right. I was just watching you, and how your spirit was just not the same. So I did feel pushy in those times, but I'm glad that you look at it as me holding you to a high standard, and me not just bickering. I may sound like it, even with my other friends. It's all love. It's because I know what you're capable of, and I know that sometimes you get scared, and we're fearful of taking that leap. So it makes me happy that you look at it as,
because I know that's who you are.
That's all it was.
It's just understanding. And like sometimes I remember when I was saying to your boyfriend the other day, and like, sometimes when you read Ashley's text messages, you just gotta read them and in her voice, like the way she would say it, because the way you say stuff sometimes, I know,
but I'm literally talking to text.
I know, and I know you are,
and I try to use punctuation,
because
but
that's
he
the way you
also that is something that he and I are working on, because
he'll learn.
He has to.
I had to too.
And really, you may be hearing it in a whole. I'm saying it like that, but I'm really just saying it like that.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing too. Is like not taking stuff personally, and I've been actually trying to apply that to the world around me as well. As like if somebody cuts me off, it's like they didn't cut me off personally because of me. They cut me off because they're running late, or they're having a bad day, or whatever. It's like taking stuff personally and getting offended by someone's actions when they have their own things going on. It's bigger than that.
I struggle with those things.
Yeah.
I struggle with having people understand me. I am the oldest child. I am the oldest grandchild. I have been through each stage of everyone's life, and it has made me a person that always wants to uplift and push you to do better, because I was pushed to do better.
Right.
I was held to a high standard, and not everybody wants to be held to that, but eventually they do appreciate it, because I really am just trying to be that person that you would want me to be in the future.
Yeah.
Back then,
For
you
sure.
know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been that for other people in my relationships with them as well, and you're either going to be receptive of it or not. And I think also there you can turn it back around, and you can always say and have some accountability for yourself and say, like, maybe the way I say things because I'm this way, or maybe the way I do things because I'm this way. Or we were talking about being defensive earlier. Like, I do that too, and I know where that comes from, but it's something that you can acknowledge and you can grow on, and that's something that I've had to do now in my current relationship. It's what I have to work on all the time in my current friendships, but I'm willing to put in the work, and I'm willing to give people the grace for the work that they have to do on themselves, because, you know, I know we're not all perfect. We're all human beings. We all have work to put in, but, you know, I think choosing who you love is choosing who you're willing to suffer with beside you in life, and if it's real, it'll last. I do know that. If it's not, it won't.
I think I'm in a stage where I am trying to be more gracious and graceful with people. You have always been graceful. I am more cutthroat. And it is just because that is where I come from.
I was going to say, and I know why. Because of what you've been through.
Right. Mm-hmm. But instead of me saying, which I have before, this is just the way I am.
Right.
I am now trying to say, well, I can work on that so you can perceive me better.
Right.
So just from when I started my spiritual journey at 28, when I was still having these horrible fights with my brother, to we still fight and we still go back and forth, but it's a different dynamic now, because I'm trying to communicate better. I am trying to be more understanding. Correct.
Coming from, yeah, I understand that. I think the contentness in yourself and the spirituality thing is a big aspect of that, but I will say in general, though, I'm just very proud of you because I've witnessed that growth. I really just think it's just all self-awareness and accountability as well. Like, I give you 100% credit for being like, I know that I've always been like this, or I know these traits about myself, because, I mean, let's also be real. Like, you have so many amazing traits. You are an amazing friend and an amazing sister, and person in general, but you still have these faults, and you're like, these are mine. These are my faults, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I have no shame about it, but I will work on them because I want to.
Well, because I feel as though everyone in my life deserves for me to work on those things. I can't ask someone to take accountability for something they're doing if I am not leading by example. I used to talk a good game, but then go behind and do the opposite, because it's easier to say it than to do it. But now I'm trying to do it before I give that advice, so it doesn't look like I'm being a hypocrite. It doesn't look like I'm telling you something I wouldn't do myself. So I think the biggest piece of growth that I've had is stop being so defensive, taking accountability for your actions, and learning how to communicate to the person who you're talking to.
And asking for help and just being open.
Well, I'm still working on that now.
I know, but
I'm still not open, and I'm still not asking for help, but I'm getting better at it.
You are.
And that's all I can continue to do, is to figure out what way is comfortable for me to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I think it's the vulnerability, it's the judgment.
I have to work on that all the time too, especially with my partner. It's just,
especially with my partner,
help, or even just accepting it, because I don't even have to ask sometimes.
He gets so frustrated with me.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, I was alone for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may have had my situationships in between, but I was alone for a long time.
Yeah.
And I sat,
Hyper-independence, baby.
right, I sat in my alone time and I figured out what I wanted. And even with my partner, it has definitely been a struggle, but he was not the only one that had things that needed to be worked on. And the more I saw in him that needed to be worked on, the more I saw in me I needed to work on now as a partner.
Yeah.
I worked on myself as a single person.
Yeah.
Now I need to work on myself as a partner because him and
that's
I are
applicable
trying to
as a friend
Yeah.
as well. In all relationships, you can take those like things that you see in other people and like turn them inwards.
I feel like you and I have had a partnershit for a long time.
Yeah, you're my
Where-
other significant other, girl.
Yeah, I love you, and
Yeah,
I
when
can't wait
read
to
that
read the
I
book.
was like that. I identify. It's a great book, but I think it's there's parts of it that just make sense. We do need relationships as human beings. It's one of the hierarchies in our needs is like
Being social, having a community,
being close, like being able to be vulnerable. We can't operate without having those things. So you have to be aware of who you're allowing to fulfill that role, because I mean people will come in and take that spot up, but that doesn't mean that they should, and that doesn't mean you should allow it.
and that's where the boundaries come in.
Yeah,
The older I
boundaries,
get, the more strict my boundaries are, the more my wall goes up for those who are not showing me that they're for the long term.
Right.
At this point, I'm not for the short term anymore. I've had my short term relationships, I've had my short term friendships. At this point, I'm looking for the longevity and who is going to continue to grow with me, but in their own way.
Yeah, and a lot of that too is knowing your worth. You have to know your worth. You have to know what you bring to the table. I know I'm not perfect, but I know I'm a damn good friend. I know that I love very hard. I know that I'm consistent and show up and that I'm honest, and I expect the same. My friends like have their own faults and whatever too, but it's like every single person in my life is in my life for a reason, because they're top notch, baby.
That's right.
Like they're the vibes are always immaculate. They're kind and caring people. If drama is very minuscule and it's never even that serious,
And we work it out.
and exactly
Internally, we
Right.
work it out.
right.
And on that note, we do want to shout out all of you who have put in the effort, who have continuously communicated with us, who don't assume, who don't go let time pass and just let people think what they want. We appreciate you for sticking by us and loving us and supporting us unconditionally.
Shout out to the friends. Thanks, guys.
So you want to get into the hits and misses of the week?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right, let me think. Okay, well, obviously my hit is that I'm going to Curacao. I'm very excited about that. It's my best friend's birthday. She's turning 30. She's also like my planner friend, so she's planned an amazing trip to the islands, and I'm just ready to be on the beach in some sunshine. I've been sick. I've been working. I'm tired. I'm ready. I'm ready to go on vacation. And I would say, what is my miss this week? Hold on, I wrote it down. Oh, that was my miss. Is that I've been working so much. I've been tired. The past couple months I've been so busy. It's been hard to have a day off. If I've had a day off, I still end up going in, to work on one person or something like that. So
Self-employment, honey.
yeah, okay. And also, I mean, just before you go on a trip, you always know it's like right before, it's so stressful, and then also right after I get back, I gotta squeeze everybody in. Just getting ready for the trip is the worst part. That's my miss, but the trip is the hit. What about you?
Well, my hit this week is my partner and I are going on a weekend vacation to Waynesboro or Waynesville. It was a last minute group trip, so we're looking forward to that. Well, my miss of the week is I just feel run down and tired and spread thin. So many events been happening, and I feel with the overtime, just not enough time to myself. I just can't catch up on sleep. But I'm working on it, right? I'm trying to do my best. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only do what I can do.
I heard that, girl. On next week's episode, we'll be discussing family dynamics, cultural traditions, having immigrant grandparents, growing up in a biracial household, racism in that household, having a matriarchal family, and teenage parents. And we look forward to seeing you guys next episode. We hope you have a great rest of your week. Until next time.
All right, sis. Go like, follow, and share both our Facebook and Instagram at Big Sis Besties Podcast. Don't forget to turn on all notifications so you don't miss any tea. All links are in the description.
Please be sure to email any questions or inquiries to bigsisbestiespodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show as much as we hope you did, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Facebook. Tune in every other Friday for the latest episodes.
Thank you all for joining us this week on Big Sis Besties. It's been real.